Hi, I'm Dale Kamensky, surfacing artist at Cloud Imperium Games, and today I'm going to be showing you some surfaces. So I'm going to go over a little bit of my process and how what we use works. And so we're using what's called physically based rendering. It's just a fancy term for the new age rendering system, I guess. One of the things that PBR does really well is it kind of lumps everything into two categories. So you have your metals and your non-metals. Metals are typically, shiny and they have different specular properties, whereas non-metals like wood or concrete or rubber have very diffuse lighting and a lot of bounce lighting. But, you didn't come here to see that. You came here to see shiny stuff. So here you go. Here's some shiny stuff. So this level right here, this is my fancy new material zoo. Basically building this as a tool for the artists to kind of go in and see different textures, because right now we're in the process of trying to build a global texture library so that across all the studios, Manchester, Austin, us, Denver, Behavior, all those guys, we can have a place where we can go where there's physically accurate textures, and they can be used across all surfaces in our game, across ships, characters, environments, what have you. So this right now is my metals layer, and you can see I have a whole bunch of different specular values. We have nickel, copper, gold, iron, platinum, titanium, aluminum, and silver. I like titanium personally, strong metal. And here are two examples of metals that I've created. And the cool thing about shaders in CryEngine and the way that they work is they're very easy to edit without having to actually replace any of the textures that are involved. So, for example, right now, these are both, I think they're iron. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say they're iron. So if I wanted them to, let's make them copper. So I'm going to come over here, grab this value. Oh wait, that's nickel. Copper, right. And then grab this orb here, find its texture, and replace the specular value with that of copper. And voila, it's copper, just like that. And it still maintains all its texture information. Also, one of the cool things is all our shaders have wear built into them. And one of the things that we're still trying to experiment with, and that might make it into the game at some point, is the idea that all our surfaces will wear over time. So I like to actually build this into the shader. And so right now you can see there's a little bit of wear on the surface. There's some scratches, but over time, turn helpers off. See it getting slowly and slowly dirtier and more messed up until it becomes completely covered with soot and dirt and whatnot. So that's metals. I like metals. Metals are nice. Now, I think one of the surfaces that gets used most in our game is paints. And right now I have 3 different paints set up in the scene. And again, one of the cool things about CryEngine that we all love is the ability to, if you offer your textures right, you can tint everything with the diffuse. So if you want your paint to be red, you got red, green, blue, pink, yellow, any color you want. And again, it wears over time. And again, this is the key thing about PBR. You have your metals and your non-metals. So this is a non-metal. Also, fancy car paint. I like car paint. Car paint is hard to make because it's got 2 different surface properties. It's got a clear coat and an underlying layer that has metal in it. So you kind of got to treat it almost as 2 different surfaces. Car paint is one of the most beautiful surfaces, I think, in the world. And it's because it's like very finely crafted. You have multiple layers going on. So yeah, that's paints right there. So let's go look at utility. Utility is like basically sheets of information. So instead of having one solid texture that you can change all the properties on, you have a lot of information baked down into one sheet. And for this sheet, this is like my engine utility sheet. It's actually, it may look like all this is actually modeled in, but we're using a new technique called parallax occlusion mapping. If I actually get down into here, you can pretty much clearly see that this is a flat plane. But if you look at it from the outside, it looks like it has a lot of depth. And the reason that the way that this is working is essentially parallaxing is you have this, you're looking at a surface, and as you look up, the surface will move with you. So it gives you the illusion that there's depth there by distorting the actual surface. And it's very, very, very convincing, because it also, CryEngine will calculate shadows in and give you actual depth. So if you look like right here, you can see as I move this way, the surface moves that way, giving the illusion that there's depth there. This technique has been used forever. I mean, it was used in Star Wars with the star fields and the spaceships to make them seem like they were spinning and moving around all crazy. So this is an example of the texture being used on a main thruster. You can see there's all sorts of wear and fun stuff going on. I'm a particular fan of this texture. Took me a while to make. And then we have some wires. Everyone needs wires, hoses and whatnot. So these can be used on multiple ships or multiple assets. And that's a thing that we like to do, is we like to make things as reusable as possible. So when I go and make a new texture, the first thing I normally start off with is I just start by making the texture white. So just start with flat values. Then from this point, you're going to ask yourself, what kind of surface is this? So for this example, I'll make like a kind of gloss, or like, oh, let's do a matte paint. That's easy. First thing is you want to dial in the speculative value. And the speculative value is actually based on real world numbers. But you know, you can kind of fudge it. I like to use for paint 67, because it's like a metal. Metals are on the high range, so they're like 255, and then diffuse stuff is between like 35 and 67. So 67 is actually kind of a high number for this. Let's make it green. I don't want it to be that green. Not many surfaces are that vibrant, so you just want to pull down the saturation, pull down the luminance a little bit. Kind of like, let's make it olive drab. Alright. And then I like a kind of pearlish, matte-ish glossiness to it. That's more matte than anything. But anyways, so as you can see, even without any textures being added to the surface, it's still got a lot of, it looks really nice. And that's one of the cool things about working with PBR, is you can get yourself like 80% of the way there without even touching textures. But we're going to go ahead and add texture information, because what's the surface without textures? And so I'm going to just slap on a paint and a diffuse. You see that adds just a little bit. And that's the thing with my textures, is they don't have a lot of information in them. They're just adding a little bit more of surface breakup. So I'm just kind of like layering stuff on. The next thing to add is a normal map and a gloss map. And this is going to give the surface a sense of roughness in areas and give it different kind of breakup along the surface. There you go. It's got a little bit more information in there. And now to add even more information in, we're going to go Find a UDM. This is basically another normal map, gloss map, and diffuse map that tile across the surface. And this is key. This is like, because you're adding in two different layers that are working independently of each other. Start these settings all the way dialed down and kind of see if I crank it up. That's kind of what it's going to look like, but you want to be really subtle with it. So, right about there. Crank up the diffuse just a little bit. This gives it some kind of brush strokes. Lift the gloss a little bit. You can see that's kind of shinier there. Wow, we already have a really convincing card paint, or a really convincing just matte green paint. You can take this even a little bit further by adding in a blend layer. It's going to appear to mess it up, but believe me, it's still working. So now I'm going to add a blend mask to decide where the new material is going to blend in. This is going to be dirt, so I'm going to use kind of like a dark brownish kind of diffuse. And then a lower specular, because you don't want dirt to be shiny. Dirt's not shiny. So you can see that dirt kind of blending in a little bit. So these kinds of techniques can be used to create a variety of different surface types and different kind of shaders, and it's kind of the way that we're going to be building stuff in the future. Because one of the cool things about this green paint is that I can go and take it and make it green, blue, or pink. So I know that fans definitely want to have the ability to customize ships. So in the future, we're hoping to be able to implement maybe RGB sliders or give you swatches to work with so that you can have further customization of your ships. And, you know, you could do everything from a black Hornet to a red Mustang to even a pink Retaliator. There you guys go. Pink Retaliator. Alright guys, this has been a little look at how we build our materials in Star Citizen and how we achieve the high level of visual quality that our game demands. And I hope it's been informative. And I guess I'll catch you guys next time. I'm Daniel Kamensky, surfacing artist at CIG.